Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Ink. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our newest episode of I Never Knew, or Ink, by Life Coach Maureen. So excited to have all of our listeners here today. I do want to preface this with a trigger warning, and also if you have little ears, I would like for you to send them away for now and maybe put headphones in. But today, guys, I'm so excited for my next guest, and I was so fortunate to find her, and I saw her story and I thought this story has to be told on Ink because it's so impactful, and I think her bravery when you hear her story is, immense. So get ready, put your seatbelt on, sit back with your coffee, and really feel what we're going to be talking about. So my guest is Madeleine Black. She has an unusual personal story which she uses to inspire and motivate others. She chose to forgive the two men who gang raped her at 13 years old, and she shares her story for many reasons. And I think this is so powerful. She wants to end the shame, stigma, and silence surrounding sexual violence, enabling others to find their voice, whatever their story is. She wants people to know it's not what happens to us that is important, but what we do with it. Precisely why on this podcast we tell stories to help each other. She will show how changing her mindset tapped into her resilience and transformed her life, making people question their own thinking and encouraging them to see that there are always choices to make if we choose to, and we can get past anything that happens to us in life. She's so successful. She shared her story on the Forgiveness Project's website. She won an award for amazing strength in magazine Amazing Women's Awards in October. Patron for Say Women, a Scottish organization that offers safe accommodation and support to young women who are survivors of sexual abuse and rape who are homeless. She is one of 50 thrivers taking part in research by the Global Resilience Project to develop a resilience blueprint for others. And she is a 2-time TEDx speaker, which is amazing, and hashtag goals for me. I could go on, and we're going to let her tell more of her successes. She is a psychotherapist, and she has a memoir that everyone needs to go and get called Unbroken, and it was published on April 4th of 2017. Wow, the whole podcast could be about your success. Welcome, Madeleine.
Thank you, Maureen. That's a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
I'm so happy that you are here. I mean, I have goosebumps. Right now I have like full body chills because I know when I'm in the presence of something amazing, and I can't wait to hear all that you've done and all that you've overcome and how you're helping others. So we're going to get to the difficult stuff first because it is I Never Knew, and we start with our stories. So you tell us in your words what happened and how you were able to process it and get through it, move past it, and then use it for healing for others.
Sure. So anyone that's listening, I just have to let them know I didn't get to this place overnight. It's been a journey of healing and many different types of therapy, and it's not a quick fix, but it is fixable. I do believe that. So my story, as you said in the intro, started when I was 13, when I had a night out with a girlfriend, And we just did what most kids, I'm sure, have done. We just lied to our parents about where we were staying because her mum, she had an empty. So we bought alcohol, and I'd never really drunk before, and was skinny little 13-year-old girl, and I just got very drunk. And we were in a cafe in North London, and we kicked out because I threw up all over the place. And there was a load of Americans on our table. This was in London, and two of them put us in a taxi, and we went back to her mum's empty flat. And to cut a very long story short, the two of them just proceeded to rape and torture me over a 4 to 5 hour period, really. And then they left, and they left us. They made a few attempts to kill me, but clearly they weren't successful. And I just went back to school the following day, as if nothing had happened. But we know now, that's not quite true, because what we can't speak about, it's got to come out of us somehow. So it affected me for years and years and years. I had depression, anorexia, suicide attempts. I was in a psychiatric ward. I drank, I used drugs just to really, forget it and numb out and put it far from my head. Just left me feeling just worthless, contaminated, dirty. Used to scrub my body, became very promiscuous. So when I said I didn't think it affected me, looking back, it clearly affected me. And it was really until I met my husband we actually met the other day, about 39 years ago. So a few years ago, when I was 17, really because of him, because of love, really, I thought I was unlovable, but he showed me that I was lovable, and I was able to learn to, break down the wall that I'd built in front of me, that barrier, and I could let his love in, but I could let love out as well, which was, I'd closed off completely and shut down and numbed out. And then I could slowly, really over time, with his unconditional love, I learnt that I wasn't this unlovable, worthless human I thought I was. And I could see that I was likable, and I slowly over time learnt to, I guess, love myself. And a big, big turning point in my healing was when I reversed my decision not to become a mum, because I said I'd never become a mum. He knew that when we got married. I had this phobia, one of my many fears and phobias, that, giving birth was going to just be like being raped again. I had terrible fears. I don't know where I got this image, my feet in stirrups and men at my cervix and being held down. I've ended up having, my first birth was in a beautiful hospital in London where he stayed for 3 nights, and then the other 2 were upstairs in my house here. So I've had amazing experiences. So yes, I became the mum of 3 girls, and I really thought that was it now. I did the thing that I thought I could never do, but my eldest daughter, Anna, when she became 13, it triggered all those memories I had locked inside of me, all those memories I pushed deep down into a chest inside. It kind of opened up, and I couldn't close it anymore, so I went back to therapy again, and it was really to the end of those sessions that the idea of forgiveness came to me. It wasn't something I ever really thought about, and it was suggested to me that maybe they weren't born rapists, these 2 young men. And at first I just was really so angry with the therapist for suggesting such a ridiculous thing, but it really got me thinking, and I wanted to understand how could these guys, they weren't much older than us, how could they be so violent, and how did they know how to dehumanize and degrade another person? Where did they learn that from? And it sent me on a journey of inquiry, and somehow, I don't know where it came from, but I started to feel compassion in my heart, because I thought, I've done a really good job of living my life well. When I reversed that decision to become a mum, I called it my best revenge. That, not only was I going to become a mum, but I was going to live my life really as well as I could. Just didn't want to be identified by what had happened. And then I just saw I could take it one step further, that I could forgive them, and not really for them at all. It was really forgiving me, because for many years I thought it was my fault, because I'd lied and I'd met boys and I bought alcohol, and I thought I'd just brought this on myself. Like most victims of sexual violence, the guilt, it's such an intimate crime that we take it so personally. We if our car is stolen, we don't say it was our fault because we parked our car outside our house, but when we are attacked, assaulted, it's just so personal and intimate that I just thought I must have brought them somehow. So the first person I had to forgive was me, and forgiving them is never about forgiving the act of rape. It's because the act of rape was just a total violation on my body, my mind, and my psyche, but it cut the chains that linked me to them, because I was just filled with anger and hate and revenge for years, and I saw that could destroy me. So it just really was my key to freedom, I guess, and it just brought me peace. So that's a quick summary of my story.
Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Yeah, to sum it up must be, so difficult, but wow, I want to unpack so much there. I mean, that's so much. And I always say the greater the pain, the greater the healing, and the greater the growth. And I always think the way that we can reframe things is, I was strong enough to handle what was brought to me or what I had asked for to be able to do my life's work and my experience. I want to go back to, was your husband the first person you had told, or were you able to, because I'm sure your parents saw a change in you, right? Maybe?
It took me about 3 years to tell my family, because one of the last things they did, they held the knife against my throat, and they had used this knife on me already, and they said if I tell anyone they would kill me, and I believed them, obviously. So it took me 3 years. I wrote a note and I left it on my pillow, but when they called my friend who was there that night, she denied it had happened like I said it had. So my dad still wanted to go to the police, but my mum was really, really quiet. And in that moment, I thought my mum doesn't believe me. But actually, many, many years later, after my father had passed away, she said that she had been raped as a little 8-year-old by her neighbour. So in that moment, when I'm presenting them with what happened to me, she couldn't say anything because my dad never knew. And they had 5 children and she'd never got help. But I mistook that silence for not being believed. So Stephen knew some details. He knew that I was raped when I was 13, but he didn't know all of the details till many, many, many years later. I still had so much shame around it. I couldn't tell him what happened because I assumed incorrectly if he knew, he wouldn't love me anymore. He would be disgusted because I was riddled with self-loathing and disgust for years. I thought he would get me turned off me, he wouldn't want to go near me, he just would be revolted by me, as if I was damaged goods, but obviously 40 years later that's not the case. So, but yeah, but it's what our mind does to us in these moments.
It does. And what you said I really love is that this type of crime, rapists and molesters, this is such an intimate crime that the guilt and shame, I think, come from, I let them in my space. I must somehow be responsible for this. And as a teenager at 13, my gosh, the most fragile, fragile time, I think, in a woman's life to, gosh, you do rebel. You do things that all teenagers do that. They're going to defy their parents and test those limits. And so the putting the blame for lying and the drinking and just being a normal teen, you turned into, I deserved this. I caused this on myself. I can relate as well, having parents that don't talk about it. I had an incident as well in my childhood, and I was 6, and it was in a public place, and it was just, we had the police at the house, and they never talk to me about what happened. It was just, we were laughing because there was a police officer there. We never really understood what went wrong, what was wrong, why that wasn't okay. And so I just love that we're bringing this awareness to this. I know and there's no way to say there was this profound moment, but I like to ask people when they tell their story, was there just sort of a thought that stands out in your mind, or a moment where you said, enough, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to let this, destroy me. And was it when you reversed your decision to be a mom, or was it sooner than that?
Yeah, that was one of those moments. But when I was asked to share my story publicly with the Forgiveness Project, Marina, who's the founder, said, you could be anonymous, you don't need to put your photo, we don't need to put your name. And I just thought, I've had enough. I've had enough hiding and being ashamed for a crime committed against my body. Why should I hide? As if I've still got something to be embarrassed about. So I said, no, put my photo and put my name. Even I was still terrified. I'm not saying it was an easy decision, but that moment was just like, it went viral, the post, and it was just such a release because so many people then started to share their story with me. Within the first 2 weeks, literally hundreds of people, hundreds of friends, people that I know shared their story with me for the first time. People from other countries got in contact, and it was just like a few pages. It wasn't very long, but I just thought, why should I be ashamed? And Marina always calls us, she collects stories of forgiveness, and she calls us story healers rather than storytellers. And in that moment, I saw the power that comes when we share our stories. So I just thought, it's not about me anymore. It's about who's reading or who's listening or who's it's about the message that I can give to other people. And that's when I saw, I don't believe that things happen for a reason. I don't like that saying, but I think we can make reason out of what happens to us. And maybe this is now what I can do. I can share the details. I'm not ashamed to say that I was raped. I went on to be raped 3 more times. Again, nothing to do with me. I know 100% of all rapes are caused by rapists and nothing else. It just came down to the fact these I happened to cross paths with these 2 men that night. I don't think it was personal. It was just wrong place, wrong time, and it could have been anyone. So, going public really helped me to step into my shame, if that makes sense. By doing the very thing that I had run from and hid from for years, it actually grew me and made me stronger, just to show everyone, well, fuck it. Oh, sorry, I'm from America. I don't know if I can swear. Here I am. This is me. I don't care who knows anymore. So, that was a big turning point.
And I hear that in any survivor story or any overcomer story, that when we finally got to that mountaintop and we said, you know what, like you said, fuck it, I'm telling my story. It's what happened to me and it's my story to tell. And I know when I wrote my book about domestic violence, for a minute I had that shame of, oh, do I really want to do? And then I went, no, it's healing. It's like you said, and it's like you opened that dam. And as soon as that dam opened, that healing was for you. It was for you to say, oh, wow, I have this thing. And I love what you said. Things don't happen for a reason, but we make a reason from what happens. And oh my goodness, I'm going to use that. That's beautiful. And it's really, you don't know until you take that really, really scary step, how empowering it is and how common it is.
Yes.
Which brings me to some statistics I would love to know, since this is it's such a prevalent problem that I'm hoping we're getting a grip on. We're not going to stop criminals, but we're going to make it so it's easier to talk about it and to look for signs and protect ourselves. So that's the thing that we really want to encourage. So what are the statistics? Do you have any statistics for me?
In Scotland, it's awful. The statistics of the criminal justice system of people that are actually sentenced are so low. So we really let survivors down by the justice system in this country. It's even worse in England. I think of all cases that make it to court, it's something like 4 or 5% will end in a conviction. So it's very, very low. But they also, I think it's what's reported is maybe 1 in 3, 1 in 4 people will experience sexual abuse, maybe 1 in 6 men. But that's what's reported. There's been 5 men that have raped me. I never reported one. So I don't know how. I got girlfriends, when I wrote my book, so many said, gosh, I had so many near misses. Or I talk about the other kind of just regular, it's not about comparison, but, one was very violent and the others weren't. So, and they said, I had a night out where that happened to me and I never looked at it as rape. I said, well, did you consent? Friends will say I was asleep and I woke up and he's inside me. I said, well, that's rape. If you didn't consent, that is rape, So just to get people thinking about what's acceptable behavior and what's not. So a lot of people said they were put themselves in a similar position and they're just, lucky nothing happened, or something did happen which they never considered it to be rape. And for years I did the same. I undermined it and I said, oh, it's not that you know. And also because I was very good at pushing it far, far away and squishing it down inside of me until I couldn't squish it down anymore. It had to come out somehow. I think we do that. We say, oh, I don't think that really was that. But actually, it really is. If there's no consent, if you don't agree to it, then that is rape, and it can happen in a marriage. It can happen in a relationship. It's very often not the stranger that jumps out of the bush. You often will know the person. That is the statistics in the UK. I don't know what it's like over there.
I'm certain it is the same or more as well over here. And I agree with you. The justice system is not great and not. I think we're getting better, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. And in my case, and it sounds very similar with yours, most women have had multiple molestations and or rapes. And when you've already experienced what the reaction was the first time around, like, with your mom not wanting to talk about it and mine not being addressed, it really diminishes your will or even bravery to be able to say something again because you're convinced no one's going to take it seriously. They didn't do it the first time.
Yeah.
Or you've seen these news stories where they turn around and blame the victims, and that's
so much victim blaming in this country. There was a case in Ireland quite a few years ago when the woman was wearing lacy thongs and G-strings, and the judge said, well, what do you expect? And then there was a massive, massive demonstration outside of women waving their G-strings in the air saying, well, my underwear does not cause rape. And if he'd got down to my underwear, what was his intentions anyway? This is not the reason. Underwear doesn't cause rape. Alcohol doesn't cause rape. Clothes don't cause rape. Rapists cause rape. That's it. That's all it comes down to. But I don't know any of my female friends that hasn't been catcalled, spoken to inappropriately, being flashed at, being groped, being sexually assaulted, being raped. I don't know anyone that's never escaped anything like that.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. We're in 2022 for crying out loud. You would think, the women's movement that started in the 60s and 70s, you would think in 2022 we're fighting for equality, and yet we're still dealing with that. And I know there's bad apples, but there's also people not discouraging it. But I love that the Me Too movement at least has given more awareness to it. I think there's power in numbers as well. And whether it's you alone, and I'm saddened that your friend denied it as well. But we understand that she was on her path and she wasn't ready. Tell me about that.
And it is something I get asked a lot, obviously. And, I used to get really, I'll ask all these questions to myself. I'll never get the answer. So I've come up with a few possible theories. Either the same thing happened to her and she numbed out and blocked it out. Either nothing happened to her, so she really didn't know what I was going on about. Well, she was just terrified we'd get into trouble, because of what we were doing. So, yeah, like you say, that was her journey, and I can't be angry at her. That's we were just 16 or something when she got the call. So, yeah, I can't be angry with her. And because the anger wouldn't affect her. If I was angry at them still, it was only going to affect me, my husband, my kids that I struggled to have for years. It would destroy me. It's like drinking poison and expecting them to fall down and die, but actually I'm poisoning myself with all that anger and rage and the fantasies I carried out in my head for years, plotting that somebody would, kidnap these two men, take them to an empty flat, beat them up, tie them up, rape them, torture them, discard them. I had all these crazy notions going on in my head for years. And so it's a lot easier. It's a lot more peaceful if I can just learn to let all that go.
Yeah, and you're so justified and validated in that, and every single person that's listening right now is going, heck yeah, I'd be mad. I would want to retaliate. What I love that you say is that you came up with these 3 ideas of what she could have gone through, which helped you process that anger and that resentment that she didn't back you up. And I love that you did that. And I think in life, that's a really great thing to do is just walk through it. It's feeling is healing. And let's just walk through our feelings. Let's deal with that. We'll get past the anger. Then we'll get past the resentment. And what you said is, it's only hurting me. The more I give my energy to that anger and that disgust, I'm robbing my joy from my children and my husband and my life that I choose to live. And then you go a step further And this is what I love about light workers. This is what I love about story healers and anyone who has that courage and bravery to move past the pain, move past their trauma and say, okay, this is for something good. I'm going to make something great out of what happened. And so moving on, it just opening that dam for you, being able to share your story. Tell us how it built to where, I mean, my gosh, the awards and the TED Talks, and tell me how that felt and how it helped even more healing for you.
Yeah, when you said, I'm going to share my story because it's going to lead to something great, that was never in my head. Everything that's happened, I never really predicted it or saw it. And when I decided I'm going to write my story down, I just wanted to write it down for me, because I had been advised about 4 years before I wrote my book. I've been going to see, I've done a lot of therapy. You name the therapy, I have most probably tried it. Talking therapy and alternative therapy. So I've worked with a shaman for maybe about 20 years or so. And he suggested writing my story down. And I was like, oh, no way, I can't let you read that. I can't let anyone read that. I'll be too ashamed. And I would stop and I would start. And it literally took me 4 years to write 12 pages. And when he said he wanted to use it at his workshops, I said, oh my gosh, it's one thing you reading it, but then to let 200-300 people listen to my story, no chance. But then he said, it's going to help a lot of people to see how you can walk this through and how you eventually came to a place of peace and forgiveness, and what you've done with it is a bit unusual. And I trusted him. He has been, I think, the person that's helped me the most in my life. And I said, okay. And what I didn't know when I went to the next workshop after he'd spoken about me, that was in Switzerland, and I went to Ireland, to Cork, he told people not to speak to me, not to mention it. So I walked in and I felt like I was naked. I was so exposed, and everybody just kind of looked down at their feet, because he said, don't make a big deal, don't annoy her. But eventually, one by one, like when I shared my story online, people started to share their stories, because they can't keep quiet. And then they would tell me, maybe didn't have the same story, but somebody was swindled by a business partner, and he'd been so angry all these years, but he said, if you can let that go, I can forgive him and just let that go. Or another person I knew had been in prison, and, just different stories were coming out. People were sharing their stories. And then I saw, that power, as we spoke before, the power of sharing our stories, not what it can do for me, but what it can do for other people. But really, I haven't been on the journey that I've planned. I shared my story publicly, and after that I was asked to speak at a conference. The first place was at a festival of light in England at a university. The fire alarm went off in the middle, and we were to come back in. And after that, every time I spoke, somebody in the audience would ask me to go and speak elsewhere. And just before COVID, I spoke in Namibia in Africa, and I was the closing keynote. And it was just, I thought, oh, my career's just taken off. But then obviously COVID hit, and so things were a bit different. But I had made the decision then to not work as a psychotherapist anymore, because I was being asked to speak more and more. And I thought, this is what I can do. I can stand on the stage. I can share my story, not to traumatize people, but to tell them what happens. And I can also show them, actually, we can get over stuff. We can, if we choose to. We really, I'm not superhuman. I don't have superpowers. The resilience in me is in everybody. We can all tap into that resilience. It's a tool that we have. We just have to polish it. It's like going to the gym. You just have to, I was just scared for years. Fear was my friend. It walked alongside me. And when I saw that my fear was really all part of my imagination, I started to test my fear. I started to put myself into situations that scared me. And then I realized all of my fears were based on what had happened, so it was done. And it was based on what might happen, which is never going to happen because it's my imagination. So if I learned to stay right here, right now, in this moment, I was okay. So everything that's happened, I wrote my story down, and it took me about 8 weeks. I wrote 70,000 words, and then a few months later I managed to find a publisher. And then I was asked to speak, been on the radio here, TV, 2 TEDx's, whatever. Something, I don't know what it is, something is supporting me. Something has got my back, and I just trust the journey, and now I just go with the flow. I just trust life, that this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to be doing. So Yeah, none of it was planned, but this is what I've become now. I guess a silence breaker or a sexual violence activist, which if you told my 13-year-old self, she would like, no chance. She would not believe that.
I always talk about, my future self thanking me when I get into these situations where I'm just, how is this situation happening, right? Why is this situation happening? And I always say, because your future self is going to thank you. And your future self was thanking that 13-year-old girl for being brave enough to go through that and to learn from that. No, we did not know at the time, because at the time we were just lost and we were in the weeds, but we had to be to know step by step how to help other people. And you and I both have a psychology background, and I love it when you said, I tested my fear and I put myself in situations that scared me. And my friends, that's called exposure therapy, and I recommend
You
it.
at the time.
I know. That's something that I recommend, because there's no way to know. And I've heard, there's the only thing to fear is regret. And we're going to get on those roller coasters at some point and do those ups and downs, and then you realize, oh, that was kind of fun, that was okay, my fun outweighed my fear. And I think that's what the growth is. I think that's what helps us grow. And I look at you and think, you said you didn't know what it was. I know exactly what it was. I mean, that literally, whatever anybody's belief is in a higher power or not, that's your intuitiveness of, this is what I'm here for. This is what I came. And these horrible traumas that we go through, when we say, I don't know why I went through it, but now I'm in this beautiful arena of other people healing and light workers and therapy and life coaching, authors, speakers, where it's like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Mhm.
That was my purpose. That's why. What do you
Yeah,
think of
I
that?
mean, if I can walk through the fire and survive, anyone can walk through the fire and survive, absolutely. And I used to look at the word fear, and I used to look at it as false evidence appearing real, but then I switched it, and then I looked at it as face everything and rise. So when I started to face it, I went, actually, it's not so scary. And then I became, as you said, I became a bit of a adrenaline junkie, and I started to do things and thought, oh, this is great fun. And so I became so fearful that I was preventing myself from living my life. I was holding myself back in so many ways. There was no spontaneity. There was no fun. Everything was controlled. Had very bad OCD. If I can control everything, then nothing bad will happen. I had all these rituals in my head that I had to go through every day, and I was just preventing myself from living. I narrowed my life down so much. I was so scared from living my life, really. And the worst thing imaginable to most women had already happened to me. So, yeah, I had one step in the past, one step in the future, but no feet in the present moment. So that is where I had to change. And all of my work really has been about, because on that night I very much left my body, and I don't feel like I came back for a good 15, 20 years. So my job has been about landing back in my body. So really grounding myself and being present, with all different types of therapies and sports and whatever. But that was really been my job, because for years it was just like I was a house that I rented and I had no furniture inside. That's the only way I can describe it. I was just like an empty shell. So I think grounding myself and landing back in my body has really been one of the things that's helped me.
Spectacular. I love those analogies. I was a house with no furniture inside, and I needed to land in my body. And my interpretation is, I was finally mindful, and I was in the present moment, and I owned it and I accepted it, and then I loved it. And I love what you said about the fear, false evidence appearing real, and face everything and rise. I mean, we all have those fears. What I love, though, is that we have to we could be in this box. We could be in this glass box and look out. We're going to see the world, but we're not experiencing the world. And that's what we're here for in this human experience. Something that really stands out to me is you reversed your decision not to be a mom, and then you ended up having 3 girls of all,
Girls, huh? Isn't life
um,
great?
which is so cool, because your purpose was have these 3 girls and teach them this thing that you're going to prevent. Now, was that hard to have girls? First of all, when do we start talking about this to our daughters? I have granddaughters that are 9 and 10. How soon do I start talking about how to protect themselves, how to say no, all of those things?
Speaking about consent, it doesn't need to be about sexual consent, but you tell them, if you don't want to hold someone's hand, you don't have to hold someone's hand. If you don't want to kiss your grandma with whiskers on her chin, you don't need to kiss her. You know, people used to say when we were little, oh, come and sit on my knee. Well, no, you don't have to. Then even at 9 and 10, even younger, they need permission. You need to check in with them and say, just teach them it's okay to say, no, I don't want to do that. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Listen to their tummy, listen to their gut. You know, we all born with that intuition, and it gets squished away as well. It gets layers and layers of other stuff get put on top of it. But if we really listen to our gut, we often say, I just had this feeling, and if I'd have listened to that feeling, I know that wouldn't have happened. You know, it's there, isn't it? Yeah, I forgot what was the first part of your question. I got sidetracked, but you've got an 8 and a 9-year-old granddaughter. Oh my God,
you're fabulous. No, what I was wondering was how difficult and how triggering was it when you were raising your daughters? Like, were you overprotective? Were you?
Yeah. I'm a Jewish mother, so you know it's even worse. But you know, I just. I'll give you an example, which I write about and I speak about. When my eldest daughter was going to school, we lived very near primary school, so I could walk them every day and walk them back. So that was fine. I was safe. I was controlling them. And when Anna was going to high school, she said she wanted to go on the bus with all of her friends, a public bus. And I said, not a chance. I'm going to drive you there. I'm going to wait. I'm going to pick you up and whatever. And then she just ground me down to, oh, Mum, everyone's going on the bus and it's really uncool and, you know, all of that stuff. So I said, okay. So I gave her a rape alarm for her pocket. I told her not to listen to her music with her earbuds in, sit nearest the driver on the bus, and then that was fine. And then I got into my car and I drove behind the bus. And I just thought, you are crazy. You are absolutely mental. What has been the point of having these 3 girls if you then fill their heads with fear? You're going to corrupt their minds and you're going to condition them to think you should be scared of everyone. And that's also at the turning point when I saw that I could really do that to them. And I thought, I struggled so long to have them, I'm going to fill them with fear. So then it went the opposite way. I allowed them not to do whatever they wanted, but Anna was out going to clubs at 15 with a fake ID. They were having prees at my house, you know, not really meant to drink in the UK. I know in America it's different, 21, but in the UK, 16, you can be married at 16, but, you know, can't drive till you're 17. You can have sex at 16. That's a great message, isn't it? But, so, you know, she was doing everything. Now she's 29. She's just got married. She's got a house, a husband, a dog. She's very, very sensible. But I just let them live their life. And I always just said to them, listen, I don't care what you've been doing. If you're drunk, if you're stoned, if you lost your money, whatever, just call us. One of us, Mum or Dad, we will always come and get you. We won't judge you. It's absolutely fine to make mistakes. And the very first time she got drunk, it was actually her friends prevented her from calling. They said, your mum will be really angry, you can't call. And then eventually she said, call my mum, call my mum. And then when she got home, I had to take out her contact lenses. She was throwing up all over me. And she just said, anything could have happened to me. Anything could have happened. And she just, apart from saying, oh, Mum, I love you, because she was very drunk. And then she just realised, and I have to be careful here, because it's not about putting herself into a dangerous position, because you're still allowed to go out and drink. That doesn't make you responsible for someone else's actions. But I just always wanted them to know that, you know, we would always come and look after them. I always wanted them to be honest. I didn't want them to lie like I had lied to my parents. So I've basically, you know, they have all the drinks at my house, or they go out clubbing, and they're all, you know, they're absolutely fine now. But I just saw that, if I'm not careful, I could wrap them up in caution wool and never let them go out, never let them date, never let them do anything, and then I'd be limiting my life and limiting their life. So I made a conscious decision to let them be these, you know, spontaneous, independent, confident women that want them to be. And then, you know, my youngest one is now going to study in America for a year, and I think, I've created that, I've made her confident, and now she's going off me. I want her to stay home. So you have to be careful what you create as well. But I wanted them to be fierce, spunky women, really.
Oh, I mean, that in itself, I'm just sitting here in awe. That in itself is awe-inspiring, because what happens is we create these cycles in families, and we can see it, and we have this, really, we have empathy for people who've been through that, and we go, well, I can totally understand why she did that. And you recognized it and stopped it and said, hold on, I'm projecting what happened to me. I'm projecting that I'm still in a place of fear, and I still have all these reservations, and now I'm not going to just affect my life, I'm going to affect their lives. I love that you said, okay, and then I let them have freedom. I raised my girls, so I have 2 girls and a boy. I raised them. I've always said, you have freedom with limits. And that means that, you call whenever anything. I was the same way. Call me no matter what. My other thing, which I think is really good advice, and that you had said also about the alarm, the rape alarm. I think the 2 most important things for young girls that are going out there and having fun, teenage and college, throughout that age, is my daughter, when she went to college, I insisted she had her drink with her at all times. Yeah. And that she had a straw, and now she's obsessed with straws, and so I probably caused that. But I've always said to them, do not leave your drinks unattended,
yes.
and always
use.
Don't
go back and drink it.
Yep, or you put your hand
on the top. Yeah.
Yes, they also have nail polish that changes colors that you can put your thumb in.
I do agree with these things, and I don't, because why should it be down to us to stop them? Why? It's very hard. People will tag me in things which with good intentions, like underwear that's like chastity belts. I think, no, I don't like that. Why should it be down to the woman? And if she didn't forget to put them on that day, would that then be her fault where you didn't wear them? And if he couldn't get them off, would he cause more damage in, knifing her to tear them off her body? And I kind of really don't like all these preventative measures, because I think, no, we should be allowed to wear what we like, drink what we like, go out and do what we like without feeling the threats. So I feel very mixed about these things, like all the nail varnishes that tell you if your drink is spiked. And yeah,
I think it's a good.
Very easy, it's very messy.
I know. It's almost like I resent that we have to do these things. I resent that I have to have this conversation with a 9 and a 10-year-old grandchild of mine. But on the other hand, I hate seat belts, but I'm glad that they're in my car and I use them. So I feel like, if it's a protective measure, but I agree with you that I shouldn't have to dress like, a nun to go out and have fun, because...
Well, statistically, we know babies are raped. We know women in burqas are raped. We know wives are raped. It's not down to the clothing. Right. My daughter's, wear skirts that are halfway up their bottom and little crop tops. That doesn't cause rape. If they were out in a long skirt and that could, it wouldn't make any difference.
I think the flip side of this too is we've got to quit making it the woman's problem, the girl's problem, and we need to educate the boys. And we need to say no is no. No is no. At any point, no is no. I don't care, beginning, middle, end, no is no, and you stop when there's no consent. Now, that doesn't apply to rapists, because they do not care and they're not going to get consent. But I think when it comes to the familiar the people that are familiar to you, the relationship, geez, say that 5 times fast. The relationships where that happens, the husbands, the boyfriends, the casual friends that wanted more, or high school acquaintances, or junior high, whatever. I think we need to educate our boys. So one of the things that I always ask my guests, and this is perfect timing, is if you are holding a banner and you're marching downtown in your city with 100,000 people behind you, what does your banner say about your movement?
It would say it wasn't my fault. Because that was the thing that really, really crippled me for years. It was my fault. I brought this on myself. I was just riddled with shame. So it would just say it wasn't my fault. # no more shame.
Love that.
Find yours. Share your story. Speak out. End the silence.
Tell me something that, if you're able to, without betraying confidence, but tell me maybe a story that someone said to you that you had completely changed their life because of your telling your truth?
Oh, I get it a lot. So one of the stories is I was interviewed for a radio show, BBC Radio. It was a famous UK presenter called Sir Trevor MacDonald, and my friend had been listening, and her father spoke to her that night and said that he had been raped when he was a young boy, and he just couldn't speak about it. He heard this woman speaking on the radio, sharing her story, and he was 81 when he told her, and he ended 64 years of silence. And, really, every time I go to speak, I've had many people, after they've read my book or watched a TED or heard me speak, they will contact me and say, yeah, me too, and I'm going to find the courage, I'm going to get help, I'm going to share my story, I'm going to tell my husband. But he just makes me, I just think of him every time I speak, because it just shows you it's never too late. Never too late, and the changes that went on for that person, just opening up, just changed so much between him and his daughter. And yeah, I just think of him and all the people that haven't found their voice yet, that have still locked in their own prison of silence. But if he can do it at 81 after 64 years of silence, it's never too late for anyone else to go out and get support, find their voice, and realise it was never their fault. Never.
And healing can happen at any moment in your life. As long as you are still walking on this earth, you can heal at any point, and you need to want it, because it's for you. It's for you. And I wanted to ask, was there any justice in your case, or was it something that it was too late to be able to come up with proof in courts and all that?
Well, in the UK, we don't have any restrictions. You can go back to historical abuse, from your childhood. I know there you're limited by the statute of limitations, aren't you? Which is awful.
Yes.
Because I've worked as a therapist, I've worked at Rape Crisis, Women's Aid, and most people will tell me this happened 40 years ago, this happened 50 years ago. We get our memories back when actually we're ready to face it. So we can't put a timer on it, and it gets locked away because it's not safe for us to face it yet. And it comes back really when our mind believes, now you can handle it. We might not agree. We might want to run from these memories, but it comes back when we're ready. But I never reported it, so I never went to the police. And it would have been, if I had at that time, would have been 3 years later. So any physical evidence would have been gone from my body. There's some scarring now, but I guess you could argue, was it as a result of that? Very kindly, when I had to go and get my bladder put back where it was meant to be after 3 children, she did a repair on my body down below, and that was my only piece of plastic surgery was on my vagina, so that was nice.
You better believe it. And you do not need it anywhere else, because you're beautiful. You're absolutely stunning. So, I'm a little jealous. I wish the vajayjay was the only place I, needed some plastic surgery.
But yeah, that's, I never reported it, but yeah, I just feel for women there that it goes beyond a date, so you can't report it. That's just so hard for me to get my head around that. It's crazy. Or the famous cases that we hear, like the Cosby cases or whatever, some women who come forward and some women weren't eligible to give their story because it was so long ago, and that doesn't make sense in my head.
Yeah, it's terrible. And the first reaction is to go and take a shower. And we know that when you take a shower, you're washing away a lot of that physical evidence. So any listeners that are out there, and gosh, we do not want this to happen, but we do want the awareness, is just be sure, go straight to the hospital and go and report it. And there's no shame, because as she said, the movement is, it's not your fault. Never is your fault when you're violated in any way, and especially in this case, especially when we're talking about the sexual.
I would also add, report it if you want to report it, because it is a choice. Because in the UK, it's re-traumatizing, it's re-triggering. We do have a few centres. There's one in Scotland where I live called the Archway, so you can go to them. It is brilliant. They will collect the physical evidence, and then they put it in a freezer. And it can stay there 5 years, 10 years, because we don't have a statute of limitation, 15 years. And then you can say, right, I think I want to go to court now. And then they have the physical evidence. So that is brilliant.
That's brilliant. Oh, my goodness. Do you know if we have anything like that in the States?
No idea. No idea.
I want to look into that.
you're affected by a time. I don't know how many years you have to report something there.
I think there's a 20-year statute of
Yeah.
limitations, which is terrible. You're
And I
right.
imagine
There
your
should be no
state by state
statute.
is different, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't believe that your memory fades when it's something that impactful. I think anything that is so emotionally gripping, we have a better memory than something that happened at breakfast this morning, and that's
Yeah,
just an
it's
opinion.
interesting because I used to tell myself I didn't remember all of that, and it all came back. But actually, it's not that I didn't remember. It's not that I forgot. It's just I didn't want to remember.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And when I eventually spoke what I was being shown, because a lot of it came back in my dream state, and I thought I was going bonkers. I thought I was mad because I thought if it was really bad, I'd remember it. When I said it out loud, it was like I could breathe. It was like a relief to actually verbalize it and to put it into words. But yeah, it took me a long time to do that.
And listeners, I just want you to hear the common theme for Madeleine was she took 4 years to write 12 pages. So it's the getting it out and the speaking and the, like she said, just talking about it. So it's going to stay in there. You just have to find a way to have that outlet, to let it out, and then you can let it go. And I think there's only one way to get rid of it, and that is to just cleanse it and get it out of there and
I think
speak of it.
give oxygen, and I don't expect everybody to be like me to stand on the stage and share their story, but find someone that you can speak to. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be a friend or hairdresser, whatever. And if you can't find someone to share your story, write your story down. Stop denying it, stop minimizing it, stop pretending it didn't happen. And then read what you've written, tell yourself your story, but speak it, find your words, speak your truth, and just give it oxygen, because it stagnates when it's inside. It really does stagnate, and we get poisoned by the trauma of it.
Absolutely. And what I love about technology, even though I'm an old school girl, what I love about technology is you can reach out from the United States to our beautiful Madeleine in Scotland and be in contact immediately. And I think that's the beauty of technology and the internet is we can reach out worldwide, and there is someone that you can find support with. There is a group, and I'm going to put some information about all the things like reaching out to Madeleine and reading Madeleine's book, which I am super, super encouraging on, because Unbroken, her memoir, is really going to walk you guys through her story, her pain, and her healing. And if you can't get inspiration from that, I don't know what you could get inspiration from. So as we close up, I want to let you share anything you have going on, any events, any websites, how people can get a hold of you, any support groups, anything you want to share. You just take it away.
So you can just go to my website, which is madelineblack.co.uk, and you can get all the links. I, like you, am also a podcaster, and I also believe in the power of sharing stories. So like my book, I have a podcast called Unbroken, Healing Through Storytelling. And I speak to people that have overcome adversity, all different types of stories, not about sexual violence particularly, even though I do know a lot of survivors. And I really just show people that we can not just bounce back, but bounce forward. And all of my guests are making a difference to other people. So it kind of started in lockdown when I lost all of my work and thought, what am I going to do? And I just know brilliant people that have just been through some really tough stuff, but they're all thrivers. They're all doing so well. So I just wanted to share their stories. And this week is episode 103. So just like that.
That's amazing, guys. Go to Unbroken, her podcast, episode 103. Oh, wow, I'm so far behind. I think we're in episode 23 now, but this is fabulous stuff, guys, and she is truly amazing. So, Madeleine, to wrap up, I always ask, what is your shameless self-indulgence that you love to do for you?
Oh, well, no, that's shameless indulgence. I don't have many at the moment because life is a bit tricky. My 81-year-old mum moved in with me last year, so my life has been taken over caring for my mama. But I am going to go away at the end of August to a retreat, because I thought if I don't look after me, I can't look after her, and it's been intense. So I've got 3 nights on yoga retreat. I think there might be some wild swimming, which I'm not sure about because the water in Scotland's quite cold. someone's going to cook for me, and there's meditation. I'm not so interested in life coaching because I just actually really want to rest and I really want to just be in the nature. But for me, I love just very lucky where we live. I can be in a Scottish mountain in about an hour from where we are. So we go hill climbing quite a lot. So yeah, I'm looking forward to my retreat, to be away in the wilds of the Scottish Highlands.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. I have a friend that's in Bali right now doing a retreat, and I agree with you. I think that I've never done that, and I think, oof, that's a beautiful thing to do, and that is complete self-care. Sometimes your brain just wants to say, can we just stop thinking? Can we just be instead of do? So I'm loving that you are going to do that for yourself, and it is hard being a caretaker. So we go from parenting to handing the baton from mom to daughter when they need taking care of because they took care of us. So it's a tough place to be, and kudos to you for being such a good daughter.
Sandwich age, because I've got 3 generations in my house and I'm in the middle. So it's this sandwich era I'm in.
The sandwich era. I love that. We're in the sandwich chapter. Well, and I've just taken in guardianship of my 14-year-old grandson, so it's interesting. That's just how we're doing it now. I think it's become these multi-generational, sort of how the Japanese have been doing it all along. They had the right idea, and I lived in Germany as well, and the Germans do that too. Everybody's in the house together, and I think there's value in that. I think there's a lot of value. So thank you so much for being here, Madeleine, giving me an hour of your time that you will never get back. I always say that's such a gift, and I have so much gratitude for that. So thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much, Maureen, for having me on your show and asking me to join you. It's been great.
Absolutely. Guys, if you have any comments, you want to be a guest, or you want to get a hold of Madeleine, please contact me at lifecoachmaureen.com. Also, my books are online. My dog is my relationship coach, and my dog is more enlightened than I am, and it teaches you how to love yourself, be true to yourself, and follow your purpose of path. So if you have any questions, just reach out to us. And I thank you all for listening. Leave a 5-star review so we can get more exposure for the podcast and build this community of love along with other podcasters like Madeleine, where we're all sharing stories, we're all engaging and helping and healing one another. So thank you all, and have an awesome day. Until next time, I am Maureen Scanlon, your host.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.